Okay, let's see here. We are live on Twitter/Periscope. We are live on YouTube. And it looks like we are also live on Facebook. Fantastic. People are jumping on. Excellent. North Carolina, Queens, Iowa, Ohio. Yes, here we go. Australia. Love everybody down under. California, Texas. Wonderful. People are jumping on. We are getting a crowd. Love it. Chicago. Beautiful city. Just crazy people running it. Oklahoma. Spokane, Washington. Awesome. Thank you, everyone, for jumping on. Fantastic. I am Dr. Jason Dean, Revolution Network, your source for health, freedom, and knowledge. And so I'm going to give you some really cool information, and then we are going to be joined by a friend of mine, but also an expert in water treatment, that is, Eric Fuchs, and he's going to join me probably about 15 minutes from now, and we're going to get some information for you on not only water in general from a healthcare standpoint, because everyone wants to know regarding water, what they're drinking, but also he's going to give us a little backdrop on UV light as well as disinfectants used in your water system every single day. And so we'll get some enlightenment on that, and I laugh about it because all this information coming out about disinfectants and UV light now, as I said on Friday night, is a complete and utter joke because the mainstream media has no clue what's going on, and we've known what's going on for a long period of time. So let me dive right into the information tonight. We're going to give you some updates. So just a little bit, a couple hours ago maybe, massive information drops. One from Q. Q dropped one tonight regarding the exoneration of General Mike Flynn. So actually what Q did was Q dropped a Twitter feed from Maria Bartiromo. I always mess up her name. So she's a Fox News anchor, and she wrote a tweet 4 hours ago, breaking news, sources tell me General Flynn will be completely exonerated this week. It was a total fraud, a setup, more tomorrow. Now the interesting part about this is also that I don't necessarily watch the news outlets. However, if you didn't know, Sean Hannity on Fox News, who I think Sean is a little bit more in touch with stuff than most of them. There's a few anchors from different networks out there that I think are a little bit more in touch with what's going on. So I think Hannity probably is one of those, probably Rush, a couple other ones. And I know they're more conservative, but that's kind of how the news is. And so General Mike Flynn, what people don't realize, so it's a very deep subject on General Flynn. However, he is a total patriot. He had a gag order put on him. So it goes back a long time ago. First of all, there's a great Twitter feed from Greg Rubini. And basically General Flynn was the director of military intelligence from 2012 to 2014. He knows, and this is what always comes up, is there's a quote that he knows where the bodies are buried. So General Flynn knows exactly what's going on. He knows who created ISIS. He knows who created Al-Qaeda, the Taliban, etc. Keep in mind, everyone, and this really goes back to the days of Ron Paul, too. This is not anything new. So many people think that we have quote-unquote terrorist organizations out there because we think of the Taliban, Al-Qaeda, which was after 9/11. We also think of now ISIS and all these other different groups like ISIL, all these groups that they talk about. These groups were created by the CIA. We, not Americans, but the American government and the three-letter initial organizations, CIA, FBI, all these different places, they made these terrorist organizations. This is how they keep perpetual war going on all the time. It's a complete sham. That's why I tell you, wars are bankers' wars. The bankers are having governments set up these organizations to that we have to go fight against, and then the military is tired of it. The military is over it. I've talked to so many military people just even in the last month, And they all have said the same thing, that the military is tired of being used as pawns in the game, and they want to serve America, which is what their oath is based on, the Constitution of the United States. So, not only that, but General Flynn a long time ago was doing speaking engagements. So he actually spoke for RT, the Russia Today media outlet, right? And I think he took like $35,000 or $45,000 for the speaking engagement, which is hilarious. They tried to bust him for taking a speaking engagement for $35,000, $40,000, but yet we have the Hillary Clintons of the world, the Bill Clintons of the world, the Elizabeth Warrens of the world, who will go do a talk to a major Wall Street-oriented bank for $500,000 for like an hour's worth of time. And so they went after General Flynn. Now, on top of that, I'm going to bring up a tweet here that I recently found as of like tonight. And back in 2016, November 4th, 2016, General Flynn actually wrote a tweet that said, it's a retweet, it's hashtag spirit cooking with hashtag never Hillary, and then hashtag drain the swamp. The NYPD ready to make 2 arrests in the Weiner case, and it shows Hillary Clinton and Huma Abedin, as well as Anthony Weiner, who was the husband of Huma Abedin. And it says that NYPD, again, is ready to make arrests in the case. So, not only does General Flynn know where the bodies are buried for all of these different organizations in the Middle East wars, but he also knows exactly what's going on in the Pizzagate issue, because he knows that Weiner's laptop, where that is, but also his attorney, which I can't remember her name off the top of my head, but she is tweeting all the time, and there's a video of her out there talking on Twitter where she said that as soon as they open up that computer, or the NYPD looked at that computer, the NYPD, when they saw the computer and they saw the content, one of the videos they saw, and I'm not going to go into it tonight because it's disgusting, is that basically many of the police officers had to leave the room to throw up because the video they saw with Hillary Clinton and Huma Abedin in it was so disgusting that they couldn't hold it together. Weiner's laptop has things that will take down the entire system, and Flynn knows about that. So not only that, but General Flynn's son, who I think is John, but don't quote me on that, his son, who is very close to him, his son used to tweet about the Pizzagate and the other conspiracy theories that we now know are not conspiracies. They're actually truthful because WikiLeaks made the email dumps on them. But this is all coming to light, and it's going to be a very big problem. And if General Flynn is exonerated as soon as possibly tomorrow or sometime this week, when his gag order is taken, I shouldn't say gag order taken off, his gag order's been off because he's actually been a little bit, he's spoken a little bit in the last week, but if he is released and let go and charges dropped, I think we're close to the storm starting, or we're close to the brunt of the storm, because General Flynn knows a lot. Now, he was actually going to be on the president's administration at one time, thinking that he might be the vice president candidate for the Trump ticket, but they left that off because when they were doing the vetting and everything, basically they were saying that he lied, which he didn't really lie. Now, they want to call him a Russian asset. Have you noticed that the deep state wants to call everybody from the President Trump to Mike Flynn to Donald Trump Jr. to even Tulsi Gabbard, everyone who they don't agree with, they call a Russian asset. Have you seen where this whole thing is going? And so when Mike Flynn is exonerated, General Flynn, the whole thing could blow up in their face, and I would love to actually see that. That would be so phenomenal. Now, another thing which was interesting, Devin Nunes, Representative Nunes, and Jim Jordan actually said that they both believed that Flynn was completely set up by his own government and that the whole case is a fraud. So there are a lot of people coming out in support of General Mike Flynn, people of very high status. So it's not like they're just randomly saying it. They know what's going down. I think a lot of people know what's going on down behind the scenes. So yes. Now, a couple other interesting tidbits tonight, not regarding General Flynn. We'll get more into General Flynn this week as we go, because I'm sure there's a lot more we're going to have to tackle. But we also have to get to an interview tonight, so I want to get through a couple more pieces of information. Now, today was the 50th birthday of the First Lady of the United States, Melania Trump. Now, I posted that I believe she's a bit of a silent assassin, not literally an assassin, but I believe that she has far more power than everyone is giving light to. I think the president listens to her very carefully. I think she's doing things behind the scenes that are very, very important to this whole situation. I don't think she's just a pretty face. I think she's a genius woman and she knows what she's doing. And they're setting some things up to take down the whole deal. Now, interesting is there was a tweet tonight by Doug Weed, who actually, I believe he was on the campaign, I believe, for Ronald Reagan, but he was also chief campaign manager for Ron Paul, I think in 2012. Very smart guy. Now, he tweeted tonight, which was, I didn't expect to see him tweeting about this because he's always been very libertarian. He's a Republican, he's conservative, but he's also very careful on what he dives into because he comes across as a very logical, common sense mind that I don't usually see him speak up on, like the current presidential stuff. Just like Ron Paul doesn't really speak up a ton on Trump, he speaks up on policies and topics. But he said, he is quote unquote saying, she elegantly glides through the storm of critics. He reaped massive praise on the First Lady today. So I find it very interesting that Doug Weed, who I don't necessarily hear all the time from, is saying that she elegantly glides through the entire problem, through the entire storm, and she gets done what she needs to get done. So again, keep an eye on what the First Lady is doing behind the scenes because it could be extremely important. And it's very fascinating because Rand Paul is close friends with President Trump. And Rand Paul, obviously his father's Ron Paul, so I think Rand is probably connected very deeply to Doug Weed. So if Doug Weed is saying that, maybe it's Doug Weed has some information behind the scenes, but he just stays very quiet about it. Now, a couple statistics I want to tell you tonight before we jump over to Mr. Fuchs when we talk about water tonight. The first one is the border wall. So keep in mind the border wall was very important because not just illegal immigration coming in, but one of the biggest pieces was the drug and human trafficking. Okay, now, interesting statistic tonight. The Del Rio sector, which I don't know where that is, but it's the U.S.-Mexican border, the Del Rio sector of the border wall. The moment they put that up, tonight it was reported, they had a 721% increase in confiscated drugs, meaning we're getting close to 1,000% increase in confiscated drugs at that part of the wall. What that means is the border wall actually works. You have the liberal Democrats who don't want a border wall because it wasn't just about illegal immigration. It's about the trafficking, the drug and human trafficking. That's what it's actually about. And they're putting up the wall not only to stop the illegal immigration, because we should have a proper legal immigration policy. That's when we start it back up, when he opens it back up. When people come in, they should come in through a legal and lawful manner, and also bringing them in because we do want to bring our immigrants in because they're amazing people. They help America be amazing. But we need to shut off the drug trafficking and human trafficking, and that's what's funding all of this stuff. Keep in mind, the shadow government makes trillions of dollars off of drug and human trafficking. There was an article I was going to post tonight regarding Ukraine. I might post it later. It's not a pleasant article, but it's very informative about what's actually going on. The second statistic I want to bring to you tonight is, this was actually tweeted by John McAfee, who I don't love, but very interesting tweet tonight. So the 10 most populated cities in the world: Tokyo, Dhaka, Mumbai, Cairo, Mexico City, Delhi, Beijing, Sao Paulo, Osaka, and Shanghai, right? That's a total population between all those cities throughout the world, 231 million people. They only had, between those 10 cities, 930 COVID deaths. Really small number. New York City, 8 million people, 11,000 deaths so far. That is a very jaded, insane statistic between 10 of the most populated cities in the country, in the world, and New York City. Clearly, something is going on there. I'm telling you, like, I actually wanted to go to New York City this summer to take my daughter up to a Yankee game, and I will tell you, I don't know if I'm going to be heading into New York City at least for the next year. Not because I'm personally afraid of a virus. I am absolutely not afraid of a virus. What I don't want is I don't want to get caught up in the chaos out there, because something is going on, and I personally do not want to be part of their mess, because this is far deeper than just a viral problem. There's something going on in New York City that is completely insane. But to have 10 of the largest cities in the world have a combined 930 deaths with a population of 231 million people, and New York have 8 million people with 11,000 plus deaths, something is going on in New York that is not good. There is chaos there. And yes, they are milking it for money, absolutely. New York, as much as I love New York, it is one of the most corrupt places on the face of the planet, and they have an idiot governor running the whole show. They have an idiot mayor in New York City. It just is. If you haven't seen that by now, sorry, but yeah, it is a very corrupt world. So I need you to all understand all of that information, because it is obviously very important. And now we're going to bring Eric on here. You probably hear the Skype sound going through, and we're going to bring him on for the interview. So if you have any questions, dive in. Let me grab him. And let's see here. Good. Okay. He is coming up pretty quickly here on his video. Okay, good. And there we are. Excellent. Sir, we have some people who are ready for some good information. How are you?
I am well. How are you?
Good. And Eric will have an in and out internet probably connection a little bit here as we go, but we'll do the best we can. But Eric is a good friend of mine, and he is a genius when it comes to water. And I wanted him to cover tonight some of the information regarding the mainstream media thinking that UV light and disinfectants were completely strange to them, and they never heard of that. But he's also he's an expert in water, and I want him to let you know also from a healthcare standpoint what you're dealing with and how you can be healthier as you go on. So, Eric, do me a favor. First of all, a lot of people have never heard from you before when I interviewed one other time. Could you give them a little background on who you are and what you do?
I will, and I have to say, I think you've got quite a following since we've talked the last time. It was bigger than before. But I work for a group called Missouri Rural Water Association. I work in source water protection. So I'm the guy that tries to protect the water before it becomes drinking water. And so I've got a certified water operator and then a distribution license. And then me and my wife farm. We've got about 500 acres in southeast Missouri and do a lot of regenerative agriculture, soil health. We raise some sheep and cattle, and so get into the health thing. She's a nutrition response like you are, so we kind of see the whole picture with water and soil and food and the whole bit.
Beautiful. I love it. Now let's dive into the water a little bit first. From a water standpoint, give me a little bit of an idea of how water is treated overall, so that everyone can know kind of how that works. Because I think we all see our water treatment centers, but no one really knows what goes on in there.
Well, I will. There's surface water and groundwater, and for the most part, groundwater is usually in pretty good shape around the United States if it comes from a deep well. But surface water really is. There's a lot of challenges, I should say, in water and how it's treated. But it was funny that I will have to drive right into the UV. UV has been used in water treatment processes for a long time to kill viruses. It's actually used more, believe that, huh? It's actually used more in the wastewater treatment after it goes through its process, or whether a mechanical plant or a lagoon like we've seen, and then UV is used to kill all the viruses before it's put back into the environment. So not a new thing, in our world. It's been around for a long time, especially in the wastewater. So, but yeah, it is a unique thing. Chlorine, we've talked about that before. I think you and I have gone back and forth a little bit about me saying chlorine was a necessary evil. Unfortunately, we do have a lot of challenges in our water and problems because of agriculture and pollution, stuff like that. So chlorine enables water to be distributed on a broad scale in great big cities and everything else without having to worry about pathogens, viruses, and stuff like that in the water. So
yeah, let me jump in real quick there on the chlorine. So to give everyone a little bit of a background and update on the chlorine aspect. So chlorine in our world, from a healthcare standpoint, chlorine is not a good thing because it's a chemical that goes in the body. It can actually attack and pull iodine out of the thyroid. And unfortunately, so many people are on municipal water systems or public water where they're getting that chlorine into their system. And so for the longest time, I've helped people, get chlorine out of their systems through nutrition and things like that. And we always have been told, obviously, chlorine is really, really bad. But then when I met Eric and talked to Eric, and Eric said, well, yes, there's chlorine in the water, and if we didn't have chlorine in the water, we'd have big problems. So it was a learning experience for me as well, understanding that, yes, it's not necessarily a thing we would love to have in there, but if we didn't, we would have a little bit more sickness as well. So speak to that a little bit, because I think people, one, don't realize it's there, but two, they don't know how much it's taking out of the water.
In a perfect world, it would be great. I mean, like, I live in the pristine Ozarks of southeast Missouri, and we have a well, and we bring water straight out, and we drink it. So that would be great that everybody could have that, but a lot of places don't have that ability, so they have to drink water that's out of rivers and lakes, and it's dirty. I mean, even if we didn't have a lot of the pollution we do, there's a lot of bugs, there's a lot of stuff that our bodies can do. So chlorine kills a lot of those things. I always say maybe chlorine kills you over a long time, but it's better than dying of chlorella or some of these other things that kill you immediately. But but after that said, you guys have the great technology to chlorine back out of the water after it's done what it's supposed to do. We've talked a little bit about carbon filters and the simple things that we've used forever to be able to take the chlorine back out of the water, but in my world, it's definitely needed. There's different forms. You have chlorine dioxide, you have chloramines, which is kind of a harder one to take out. It mixes chlorine and ammonia, but they're all used for the same purposes, just have different benefits and different ways they're used.
Now, could you speak to the different things in the water, like the nanoparticles? So are people getting medications in? Are people getting other chemicals in? When they're getting their water from a treatment center or municipal or public water, we talk about the filters that they could use, but also talk about the things that we are getting filtered out, because I don't think a lot of people know what's in their water supply and what's either being filtered out or not filtered out.
Absolutely. So for the most part, the filters, there's water systems have everything from sand filters to microfilters, like you said, a few reverse osmosis, but that's a very expensive way to treat water. But you're taking out mainly your organics, your sediments, things that make it look murky and everything else. But one thing it does not take out is your pharmaceuticals. That is something right now that is not regulated in water. So a lot of these, hormones, antibiotics, psych meds, things like that are not taken out of drinking water. Your chemicals, for the most part, are taken out with carbon, things like that. But there are requirements, you can have so much of some of those things in the water and still meet the clean drinking water standards. So fortunately it does, or unfortunately I should say, it comes down to a money thing. The more you have to try to remove, the more it costs and the more technology it takes to try to get it out. The best rule of thumb is not to let it get in there in the first place.
Makes sense. Do their typical Lowe's, Home Depot kind of filters work? Do this take out everything, or do they need more expensive filters to get out those nanoparticles?
You can do the old reverse osmosis, and there's a lot of technology that I don't know. We personally just use a good old Brita charcoal filter. That's what we do, and it will take out chlorine, it will take all your chemicals out, it will take out most everything, because the water treatment does do a good job getting rid of what I would call the nasty stuff, but for the most part, a good old filter. The new thing is we hear a little bit about PFAS and PFOAs, and we won't go into that too much, but it's Teflon, fire retardants, things like that. Again, a lot of the charcoal filters will take out most of that. So for the cheap, easy way to have decent water, I think that's as good as anything.
How many water treatment facilities or cities or municipalities would you say in general? And I'm asking for a big question, so you can answer it however you want to. But how many add things like fluoride? Because the audience we have is pretty smart. They're waking up to a lot of these chemicals, what they do to their body. Do they all add fluoride? Is that specific to certain areas?
It really is. I've been in this for 6 years now, and very few in our state add fluoride, and a lot of them are getting away from it altogether. Just from what you said, it's a little more controversial. Plus, it's just an added monetary thing that they don't want to spend the money for. Sometimes you get health departments that'll get grants and try to push the cities to do more or try to do it. But for the most part, I have not seen it. I know some very big, I don't know of them, but I know some big cities do add fluoride, but I'm not seeing the trend go up. If anything, we're seeing it go backwards on that.
Interesting. What can people do if they are, and people are studying more? One of the things this movement has done, and this whole obviously pandemic has done, is it's allowed people to wake up, and they're actually starting to research now. They're starting to look. They're trying to find out what they don't know around their area. What is the best way for them to look at what their city is doing? And then if there's something going on that they don't love, what do they do to take action and be cause over that?
One thing is that each city is required every year to put out what's called a Consumer Confidence Report, or a CCR. And so you can go Google your town and get a copy of that CCR. It comes in with your water bill many times. And I would say just get more involved in that aspect. This is a pretty broad statement to say here, but most of the water quality problems that I see around our state and around the country are actually caused by agriculture. It's mostly that. It's just poor farming methods, not so much your big confinement areas, but it's just poor farming methods off row crop fields, the dead zone in the Gulf, things like that. Nitrogen, phosphorus, things that really come off ag fields are probably the biggest thing. But I would look at your consumer confidence report. Go for a tour of your water plant if you want to. You'd be surprised what people would probably let you see, and just do a little research on where your water comes from, whether it's from groundwater or surface water. And feel free to reach out to me on any other questions. But we do like to see people get involved when they're more informed, as much as anything. There is a lot of good information out there, and there's a lot of bad information. So we definitely see both ends of the spectrum. But I personally like to see people get more involved, like they have been.
No, that makes sense. So that actually transitions me into the questions on regenerative agriculture, because not only do you know water, but you're able to connect the water to the land. And obviously a lot of people here are looking for health things that they can do to change, to get better, etc., build up their immune system. First of all, I'm going to ask some questions about regenerative agriculture, but connect me from the water world to the land world, because we are losing farmers left and right. Unfortunately, our country and our planet's becoming more polluted. How does the water connect to the land so that we can actually build good farms again, good food again, good livestock, you name it?
The biggest way is the way we farm now is just not sustainable. And we talk about big mega farms, and farms have gotten bigger, but it is really everything from, we have worn out the soil with chemicals, with herbicides, with fertilizers. If we would go back to how we farmed 60, 70 years ago, we kind of had it going on. We kind of knew what we were doing, and it just transitioned a lot, and everything was focused on yields. Everything was focused on more. There's enough food wasted now where we could feed 16 billion people. 45% of all corn goes to ethanol. So it's just a matter of the government is so involved in farming. But what I have found is that 95% of my water quality problems don't come from cities, don't come from wastewater plants that aren't operating properly. They come from agriculture and runoff from ag fields. The farmers, I don't think they even know they're causing a problem. And that's one thing I've been trying to do, is try to get out and change the whole story, because there is technology out there. There's regenerative ways of agriculture, and you can do it on large scales or you can do it on small scales. But it is so easy done. Cover crops, no-till, regenerative. We can actually regrow soil, have better yields, and save the planet all at the same time. It's a very simple technology, but it's just not used because that's not what everything's geared towards. It's geared towards chemicals, fertilizers, things like that.
Interesting. Do the chemicals like the glyphosates and the pesticides, fungicides, herbicides, do they also filter into the water treat? Do they filter into the water product? Does that become an issue with drinking water?
It absolutely does. For the most part, we do a good job of getting it out. But for instance, atrazine, you've probably heard of atrazine. Yep. So There's water systems around our state. When corn starts going into the ground and they spray atrazine, they know they have to change their treatment processes to be able to meet the requirements for the Safe Drinking Water Act on atrazine. So it's a known thing that yes, the chemicals, glyphosate is not a controlled chemical right now in drinking water, but atrazine, a lot of these others are. And anything that's leaving that ground is going to end up in somebody's water one time or another.
Interesting. And now, obviously, the other problem becomes food sources. So, for example, livestock, raising cattle, raising actual food. I mean, what is your mindset? Now, you know the nutritional world a little bit, obviously. What is your mindset from a food standpoint? Because everyone is obviously eating mostly commercialized, meats out there, obviously still. And there's this big push to be healthy through organic food. How can a farm help us be healthier?
I like to see more of the local agriculture. Farmers are having a tough time just because the system is rigged to go a certain way. Very little of it comes to the farm, and then they have to get government bailouts and everything else. I like to see people buy local, and I would love to see a move back to local. And a local farmer might have 10,000 acres. I'm not saying big cannot be that way, but you can have grass-fed. If you want grain-fed, fine, go buy it from a local guy, and keep the money in the pockets of their farmers market. All this stuff is getting bigger, and it's going to have to be consumer-driven. I am not a fan of EPA. I'm not a fan of regulations. I'm a fan of the consumer driving the change, and that's what we've seen now in agriculture. We've seen it in water quality. We've seen people are getting more informed, getting more active, and they're voting, and they're changing things with their pocketbook. And I think that's how we need to do it in the ag world too. We're seeing a so-called shortage of meat in the stores right now, and that has nothing to do with the shortage of meat. They're actually euthanizing animals all around because there's no processing facilities, because 80% of all processing is owned by 4 companies, Tyson, JBS, Smithfield, things like that. So small guys like us, or I would pay $450 to $500 to get a beef butchered. A company like that would pay $50. So it's hard to compete with that kind of conglomeration.
That's interesting. I did not know anything about that. So my question next is, you said something very fascinating, which was, and I get a lot of people who message me behind the scenes asking about the EPA, because what's happening is the president, the administration is rolling back a lot of regulations. Now, I think, yes, there's times and places for us to regulate certain areas, from a minimal standpoint. Like government should be minimal, regulations should be minimal, because there really should be contract law. If someone hurts the earth, if someone hurts somebody else, then that's what the courts are for. But we've become a welfare state at this point. And the EPA, which you think would be doing something good, I think is actually doing a lot of harm in a lot of ways, because it's a corruption world. How is it? How do we, I guess, put people's minds to ease on the fact that the EPA does need to be kind of pushed to the side a little bit, some of these regulations rolled back, but in your world, how does that work?
The EPA, like I said, I think there is a place. I like the EPA that they want certain clean water standards. I like the EPA that they want certain clean wastewater standards. But what it is, they always pick the wrong target. So in our world, we'll have a little town of 400 people that may just put a tiny amount of ammonia or nitrogen, however you want to say it, within the water system. Well, the EPA is screwing them down tighter, where this little town may have to spend $1, $2, $3 million to upgrade their wastewater plant. But right across the road, an acre of corn will put more into the water system or into the receiving stream than an entire town will. And so that's the kind of things. They never pick the right target. They just pick something that's easy. You might have the Forest Service burn 10,000 acres of forest off, but they're going to regulate my wood-fired grill behind my house. So it's never a fair shake. So again, I think if the consumer demands that he wants clean water, that is how you police society. You police it from within, not from some big conglomerate government agency out trying to do it. Do they need a small role? Absolutely. Well, I mean, when they started and we had burning rivers and things, absolutely they started it with a good trend. But it's just like any other government agency, it just gets big, and then they have to look for more things to regulate, more things to create their existence.
Interesting. So before I move on, we'll probably take some questions tonight. I'm sure Eric is open to some questions that we'll take. So if you have questions, please start listing them there. I'll look over and check on those. But I also, while you're doing that, so it's interesting because not only is wastewater a problem when it comes to regulations, but also obviously farming as well. So it seems like this whole medication, big pharma complex, along with the agricultural complex as well, it seems like there's a lot of government money being thrown almost like a welfare state. Can you talk to that from a food standpoint? Because I just read an article today where the price of eggs is going up, and it's funny because I already pay like anywhere from $6 to $10 for a dozen eggs because I buy it from a local person or where I know it's pasture raised and organic. But talk about that from a meat standpoint, because people really don't know the cost of the real cost, I should say, of their food.
Well, unfortunately, American agriculture is the most heavily subsidized thing there is. As far as any government program, whether it be Social Security, Medicaid, healthcare, big oil, whatever it is, there's nothing more subsidized than agriculture. So I'll use the example of ethanol. So ethanol is not only subsidized to the farmer, he gets subsidized crop insurance, then he gets subsidized payments that he knows he's going to get a certain price. So then the ethanol plant itself is subsidized, so it can make a certain amount of money. Then it's actually, you have to mandate a EPA to put 10% of ethanol in everything, so it's subsidized at the tank. So the true price of, and I have no idea what the number is, but the true price of a gallon of ethanol would be extremely high compared to what it is. And then we have excess corn, so then we feed it to livestock, and then we have excess livestock, and it's just such a big snowball effect of overproduction, and it's subsidized all the big feedlots, all the big confined hogs, all the big chickens. I'm not 100% just against them from a standpoint, but it's all if you pulled the subsidies away, those would go away on their own, and in my opinion, you would start seeing 500-acre farms with some hogs, with some chickens, like it was honestly back in the 30s and 40s. The only reason we have the structure we have now is because of the subsidies.
Interesting. And that makes a lot of sense. Now, I have some really good questions for you.
Okay.
So the first one, actually, if you can define what surface water is, that was the question. Like, what is surface water?
Surface water is anything that's going to come from a lake, pond, something on top of the surface, and groundwater is just that. It's going to come from a well. Water that is shallow, that still comes out of the ground, but it's under the influence of water from the surface, so it still has to go through a treatment plant. But like in my part of the world, we dig a deep well, we pump it up. Some folks add a little chlorine and it goes straight down into the distribution of a town. Some in my area don't even add chlorine. So surface water is that water that, and the majority of the water in the United States comes out of the Mississippi and the Missouri River.
Okay, good. What are good water tests that people can get? Like, can you go to your Lowe's, Home Depot, or should you get them from a better source?
You know, anything we do is from the Department of Health, but it's a certain test. I do not have a lot of ideas, but I know there's a lot of stuff out there where you can get tested for all kinds of different type of chemicals. I do know those tests get pretty darn high. Again, I don't know if you want to test. You might be afraid of what you see. Just get you a good old filter and be done with it, you know. But there's so many chemicals, so many things, and the more things you test for, the higher that price is going to be, and that may be a moving target as well.
That makes complete sense. Here's a really good common question. Is bottled water good? If so, if not, where would they get a clean bottled water? Do you know?
Most bottled water comes right out of somebody's municipal water tap. So it's I don't know any what I would call clean water. What I would do is just take water out of my house, run it through a good filter, and take it with me. But most all water, if you read on it, is coming out of the tap of Los Angeles or some city. You see something about springs and things on there, but most of the time that water has to be treated. FDA actually is the one that regulates bottled water. It's different than what ours is regulated under EPA, but for the most part, it's just right out of a tap. Some of it's reverse osmosis, but again, a good filter I think would do you just as good.
Very good. So, question for you. Now, this is a question I would be curious about. How much does what people use in their lawns end up in local water sources?
It's like any, it's a small percentage compared to overall agriculture. I get a lot of arguments from farmers when I go talk to them about the problems they're doing. They say, well, how about yards and how about golf courses? No doubt is a problem because there's very little knowledge when somebody's out doing their yard or doing their, how much they should put on it, what should happen. But a lot of towns, there are limits on stormwater. Any town, at least in Missouri, over 10,000 has to have stormwater permits, so there's a little bit of control. But, I'm not a big fan of seeing towns use a lot of fertilizer and chemicals on their pretty green yards, but I understand but it's nothing in relation to how much comes off ag fields as far as a total.
Good. That's a good one. Good answer. I appreciate that. There was one other one here that was asked that I thought was actually really good. Now I got to go find it again. One was really okay. So chloramines and chlorines, but typically the chloramines, how harmful can they be to a person? But yeah, obviously I know they're in the water system.
Mm-hmm. Well, the main difference between chlorine and chloramines is chlorine gases off real easy. So if you took a glass of water out of your tap, put it on your counter, chlorine gases off. And the whole reason they use chloramines is because it makes it more stable and it will travel farther in the water system. So it does not gas off as easy. As far as you would probably know is more of the harmful effects, but you're adding ammonia to the chlorine. And what it does, like I said, it lets it travel farther into the water system. So you can't just set it out and gas it off. So that is a difference. I would personally rather have a town that had chlorines and chloramines, but again, it easily taken out with a filter.
Excellent. Good. I appreciate that. So one last question for you before we let you go tonight, because I appreciate all your information and people are loving the water information. So really good. This is actually more a farming one. We have heard different statistics, and I've reported different statistics because I've gotten different sources. Some people say that our food storage or our food capabilities in America is like upwards of 3 years. Some say it's as low as 3 days. Are you at all worried about food shortages when it comes to the farms at this point?
There's never just like right now in meat, there's never a food shortage, but there is ability to process and get it to where it needs to be shortage. So right now, like I said, 4 companies own 80% of all processing with the meat. And the problem is they work so closely. Some of them are getting hit with the COVID pretty hard and they're shutting down. And so there is a huge backlog of chickens that they're euthanizing. They're pouring out dairy milk. They're euthanizing hogs, is the way I understand, because there's no processing ability. But the problem is, farmers for the most part don't grow a lot of food. Most of the farmers grow corn and beans and soybeans. So, most all the vegetables come out of the Central Valley of California, or they come from South America and different places. So I'm going to tend to say that there's never a shortage, but there is definitely, I would go closer to the 3 to 4 day supply. It's probably bigger than that, but it's a shortage of actually getting it processed, getting it to where it is. And that's why I go back to that local food movement a little bit. 40, 50 years ago, we had 4 or 5 stores. You had local egg producers. You had local people that butchered. It was such a small, even in the bigger towns, you could go out and buy that. That's what you can't do anymore. Even a lot of the butchers that are small still buy it in from a bigger one, then cut it up themselves. So I would say our food supply is pretty intricate because it's so consolidated. And anytime you consolidate an industry that heavy, you're going to have problems.
Yeah, it's interesting when it comes to the food aspect of things. And honestly, right now, as I tell everybody, try not to watch too much news because they will have you in complete panic and fear all the time. I'm sure you've seen that as well.
I have. Yeah, I have. Just and feel free. I would love to answer questions for people like this, or come on and talk again about specific subjects. You and I talked about this. We could go hours break these down and go hours on each of the little bitty topics when it comes to our food and water and stuff like that. So I'd love to answer questions personally.
Absolutely, I appreciate that. And where can people find you at this point?
Okay, so my personal email is EF2CHS9988@gmail.com, and my phone number is 573 429-1383. Just send me a text or an email. I don't have very good internet service here in the country, but I'll sure be glad to answer some questions.
He gave you his personal email and cell phone. Be careful with that. That's good information right there.
I look at you. You're looking at me like, whoa, I should have told you not to do that before.
So Eric will actually put the information in the post so that you can actually reach out to him. And trust me, Eric is a very personal guy. He's amazing. If you do have questions that you want answered regarding whether it's regenerative farming or the water, he will get right back to you. So he is an amazing source of information. Eric, I appreciate you being on tonight and answering questions and giving us a bunch of information, because quite honestly, someone like yourself who has information, you are part of the calming of people right now, because so many people are terrified. They are in fear of what's going on. Some people are just looking for really good information. So I thank you for coming on and giving them data. And as we know, knowledge calms down the fears.
Yes, and I actually, that's a very big goal, as you know, with me and my wife Jason, is try to calm people down, because there is something that can be done about it. There's always technology out there that can solve these problems, very simple. And even in the ag world, the water world, we've got what we need to make it happen. We just need to calm it down and get the right people in charge to make it go that way.
Awesome. I will do a bit of a survey for everybody in the next couple weeks on what they'd like to learn more about water. I'll get it over to you. We'll have you back on, and we'll spread some great information. So I appreciate being on tonight.
Hey, and I appreciate what you're doing very much, Jason.
Thank you, Eric. Have a wonderful night. We'll talk to you very soon.
We'll see you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. All right, everybody. I hope you enjoyed having Eric on. He is, again, a good friend, very, very knowledgeable on the entire water situation. And so if you have any questions on that one, feel free to go right to him. He will actually help you as well. But I will keep him completely updated with everything. He'll be always in my ear. I text him back and forth with what's going on, and so he is happy to do that. Now, regarding water, so I want to go a little bit into health as we finish off tonight regarding water, and I'll answer some questions too. If you guys have questions regarding water and healthcare, I will answer as much as I can in just a couple minutes, so put those up there. But Eric actually had to educate me quite a bit when it comes to water, because I have always been in the world of, chlorine is not a good chemical to have in your body. It will pull iodine out of our thyroid. It will go after the liver. It can also back up into the kidneys. So clearly it's not a good thing. And on top of that, just so you know, if you do not have water filters on your residence, whether you're in a house, a condo, an apartment, get filters on all of them, whether it's a whole house filter, and I can send you some places to get those as well. We can put some links out, and I'll put it on the website. Is a whole house filter is always better. They are usually more expensive. You can get some monthly, there's some different places you can get monthly services from. They can be okay as well. You can put them on the actual faucets. You can put them on the shower. I recommend definitely getting, if you're in like an apartment or you're in a condo where you don't necessarily control the whole thing or control the water source, I recommend getting one on your sink, but also especially in your shower. This is the reason why. When you take a shower, typically it's a hot shower. Well, the warmth actually opens up your pores, and the chlorine and the other chemicals have an easier way of getting into your body. And so that's always a problem. And typically when we see people who have chlorine issues, or the toxicity of chlorine has really gotten to them, it's usually because of the shower. So definitely get the filter on the shower. That's a big thing. Some of the most common, really great water filter systems. So obviously he said he uses a Brita, and that will clean out what he needs cleaned out there. He's obviously in a different area as well. He's in Missouri. He's in some really pristine, nice areas where the water is a lot more clean. If you're in a city, I actually recommend things like Berkey water filters, because you need something that is going to clean out some of that really toxic gunk that they put in. Also, if you're in a fluoride area, you need to get fluoride out of the body. If you didn't know, fluoride will actually go and will calcify the pineal gland. Okay, you can look that up. But if you have your pineal gland calcified, it will actually lower sleep. You will have sleeping problems. Okay, so pineal gland is involved with sleep. It's also considered the spiritual eye, the center eye, and so people tend to lose their intuitiveness. They're a little bit more into apathy. Fluoride will actually lower the IQ of an individual. And so one of the problems we've had in America is the IQ is lowered, and people, unfortunately, they get dumber. Like, that's what it is. It's a dumbing down effect, okay? So that's a big problem. But yes, water is very important. So I will tell you from a water standpoint which ones we use. Now, I personally live on a well, and so our water is pretty clean. Now, on top of that, if I am out and about drinking water, so these are the only waters that I will drink. Now, if I'm in a really situation, in a rough situation where I have to drink something, yes, I'll drink whatever is nearby, but I also know how to clean that out of my system. If I have my choice, my number one is called Mountain Valley Spring Water. Okay, it comes in a green bottle. It's glass. It's Mountain Valley. It's up from, I believe it's Maine, and it's in a very, very pristine forest, clean water. When you drink it, you can taste how good it is, okay? So that's a really good one. Now, I actually have a story on the Mountain Valley Spring Water. It has a mineral panel on the back, so it will actually tell you the different minerals that are in the water that you're getting. And we actually were out of town. We had an apartment at one point, and so because we were in the town, we were traveling a lot. We'd go there for teaching and things like that. And so my wife had gotten some flowers. Now, flowers, when you buy flowers, typically die within a few days because they're just not in good shape. We were leaving, but we were coming back 2 weeks later. And so I figured I'd try. We had a half a bottle of Mountain Valley Spring Water, and I didn't want to throw it out because it was. But have you ever been in a place or at home where there's a bunch of water bottles around and you're not sure whose was whose? And so, like, it's a half a bottle. You don't want to throw it away, but you also don't want to drink somebody else's, backwash or water. And so we had one that was half full. We didn't know whose it was. And so I put the flowers in it. Didn't think anything of it. We came back 2 weeks later, and the flowers that should have been dead, which I was expecting to be dead, it had drank about 3/4 of the water that was left, and the flowers looked even nicer than when we left. And so I was like, wow, that water is really good quality. So Mountain Valley Spring Water is number one. Number two, I will drink Fiji water. And number three, I will drink Evian water. Okay, now, am I going to promise that those are perfect? No, but those are the three that I've noticed I never have an issue with, and I don't show up for heavy metals or chemicals afterwards. And so those are the three that I actually stick to. Let's do this. Let me go through a couple questions here. We're coming up on close to an hour, and I don't want to take you too late on a Sunday night. Let's see here. What are my thoughts on the Biomat, and can I write a prescription for them? I don't have to write a prescription for Biomat because I'm a primary care physician. So as a primary care physician in Florida, I can help you with anything. Biomat, I don't necessarily know that you need a prescription for. I've never heard of that. I can get anything that a physician can get, and I've never had to write a prescription for anything from a grounding standpoint or an energy standpoint. So yes, Biomats I can get my hands on. I don't work with them all the time. What do I think about them? Anything that will give you good energy, that will increase your circulatory system and will ground you, I am happy with. Yes, absolutely. Okay, good. Any other questions? Let's see. What are my thoughts on drinking water pH? I don't drink water that's higher pH because ultimately the water pH doesn't necessarily matter. What matters is the blood pH. I don't dive into pH that much. Honestly, the moment I learned about humic and fulvic acids and I started working with a company called Cellcore, I stopped worrying about the whole pH balance necessarily because the scientists there who are working in the nano world talk quite a bit about the pH. And so the only thing that with pH, I will tell you, if you continue using high pH water, you can actually have digestional problems. The reason why, high pH water is healing water, meaning high pH heals. So what happens is back in the Civil War days, they would actually use high pH water, alkaline water on wound care because it would close up wounds and would help actually clean out the wound problem. But if you're a healthier person and you don't have a wound, it can actually sometimes cause problems in the body. So I don't go into the Kangen water. I don't use any of that stuff. I use just regular well water, and then I use good spring water when I'm out and about. That's about all I do. I don't do reverse osmosis water. If you do reverse osmosis, you got to put the minerals back in. I also don't do distilled water. I just do regular well water and then spring water if I'm out. Okay, good. I got a fish tank for my kids. Been the biggest pain because of my water. Yeah, I could see that. My wife is from Miami. She used to have, I believe, a tank, and she won't do it because it's so much upkeep and it's so hard to keep fish alive. So yeah, we don't get involved in that either. I understand. Good. Let's see. Any other questions? Let's say 2 more questions, and then we'll head out for the night, and we'll be back to really good updates tomorrow. And then tomorrow I have, let's see, what is his name? Because I don't want to forget. I have Blaine Lannon. So if you guys have been following the Twitter Anons, Blaine Lannon is phenomenal. He is going to be on tomorrow at 2 o'clock. Let me give you a little bit of background on him. I just talked to him today. He's amazing. He's ex-25th ID long-range surveillance team member. He's a digital spiritual warrior, seeker of truth, warrior patriot, and destroyer of the deep state. You can see him on Twitter. His Twitter handle is at Blaine Lannon 1. It's XHOOAH1111, and many of you have started following him since following me. He is getting quite the following. He was in intelligence. So he knows a lot of the stuff that's actually going on behind the scenes right now. He's fantastic. We talked today. He's going to be on at 2 o'clock tomorrow. On Tuesday, I have Corey DeAngelis, who is a homeschool advocate for Recent Magazine. He was also with the Cato Institute. He's phenomenal. And then Wednesday, I have Praying Medic on. So many of you know who Praying Medic is on Twitter. I will have him on Wednesday. He's going to be fantastic. Okay, 2 more questions. Let's see here. What can a dentist do instead of a root canal? So a lot of people ask about root canal questions. Great question. They can either pull it, or I believe, and I'm not a dentist, so you'll have to ask them, they can put certain crowns or caps, I believe it's called. And again, I'm not a dentist. I don't know all their nomenclature. But they can either pull it. If it's in the back, pull it, obviously. If it's in the front, then you have to have like a cap or a crown of something like that put on. Ask them about it. But if you tell them you don't want a root canal, most specialized are biological dentists. So biological dentists are really great dentists because they actually care and they know about the different mercury filling. They know about composite. They know about root canals. They're very educated on that stuff, and they're more, I guess you'd say, in the holistic way. So check with them. They would know what to do, but they also know that root canals are not necessarily good. If you go to your typical average dentist, a lot of them don't know about fluoride. A lot of them don't know about fillings, and a lot of them don't know about root canals. They may give you a hard time, okay? Good. Let's see. Let's do 1 more question, and if I don't get to everybody tonight, Ken, obviously you can message me, email me. We will help you as best as possible. Last question. What do I think about collagen supplements? Good question. I think most of them are garbage. I think most of them, even from holistic doctors who sell them, most of them are garbage. Why are they garbage? The problem is glyphosate. If you are not filtering out glyphosate, then your collagen is filled with glyphosate and it's going into your collagen. That is a big problem. I have interviewed several times, 2 or 3 times now, Dr. Stephanie Seneff from MIT. She discusses it. She talks about it. I've actually asked her the collagen question. She agreed with what I said. The problem is most of them are not good. I would only take a collagen supplement if you know for a fact that it is backed up that they do not have glyphosate and it's been tested for glyphosate. So there you go. Good. I think that is it, folks. Again, if you have questions, I don't mean to ignore you tonight. I just want to, I've been an hour, and it is a Sunday night. I want to make sure you guys all get proper sleep and proper rest for the week to come, because it sounds like it's going to be a crazy news week, but also we got to get back to work. All of us do, and I hope all of you are awesome, and most of you are essential employees, and if not, you're still getting paid. I care for all of you, and I know the economy is going to be really, really weird as we set back up. And it's very possible tomorrow I'll start with talking a little bit about the economy from what I'm viewing, because I was out last night, went to the beach, which was fantastic. But and by the way, down here, remember, Florida is both a very free state from a tax standpoint because we don't have a state income tax, but we also are mostly free from a law standpoint. We're like number 2 behind Texas, I think. Not necessarily statistically, but very free state, okay? And so everyone said, well, how was the beach? The beach was easy. There were no authorities. We don't have any problems like that. We had some people were sitting down. They weren't being crazy about that. And honestly, it was just relaxing and fun. And there was nobody breathing down our back. We also stopped for a takeout restaurant. It's a very nice seafood restaurant that's in the New Smyrna Beach area, and we stopped there. I went in, got food. Food was amazing, but they only had 3 people there, and I will tell you, I'll go into this more tomorrow. The economy, although it will start back up, I think you're not going to see it really take off until summer to fall, because quite honestly, I think people are going to be scared. I'll go into that more tomorrow, but stay tuned for that, because I think there's going to be some things we have to look at with the economy we'll deal with, okay? So guys, thank you very much. I appreciate all of you. You're amazing, wonderful people. I hope you're doing well. I hope you're taking good care of yourself. Again, go out there, help somebody, serve somebody, put positive vibes out. Guys, as I talked about in the beginning, and we'll go deeper into this week, if General Flynn is exonerated, this thing is going to heat up very quickly, because he knows where the bodies are buried, okay? This is big. Yes, guys, vaccines. So vaccine exemptions, nvic.org. Every state has a different exemption. When the school tells you need to vaccinate, they're full of crap. They're actually just trying to be suppressive. They don't know the rules as good as you know. They've been told that you have to. If you need to, go to nvic.org. Get educated on it. You have to be responsible about it. Push back. They cannot tell you what to do with your kids. You are in ownership. You are responsible for your children. So take advantage of those real rules. Know your rules, okay? I hope that helps. Guys, have a wonderful one. Yes, I know people are going to ask questions now regarding vaccines, because I just said that. So message me, and I will talk more about it this week as well, because you are in control. They cannot force mandate vaccinate your kids for school. That is a lie. You need to know the truth. Dr. Jason Dean, Revolution Network. I love all you guys. Have a wonderful Sunday evening. I will see you tomorrow night, right back here. Same bat channel, same bat time. Have a wonderful evening. Be well, folks. Bye-bye.